A kind-hearted girl saves a drowning stranger, unaware he's a mermaid prince and the CEO of the cruise ship she works on. What happens when a secret underwater world collides with forbidden love on the surface? Hey everyone! Before we dive into today's video, please do subscribe to the channel. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your country or city in the comments below. It truly amazes me how far our community reaches around the world. All right, now let's begin. Lightning shattered the sky like torn silk. The ocean roared as the Aurora Star cruise ship heaved in the storm, metal groaning under the weight of angry waves. Passengers screamed, running for cover, but down on the lower deck, where rain hit like glass shards, a young woman named Isla Moren clung to the railing. She shouldn't have been there. Crew members weren't allowed outside during a hurricane warning, but she'd seen something fall from the stern. A body. A man's body. Her heart pounded as she tore off her yellow raincoat, eyes wide against the stinging salt. "No, no, no," she whispered, watching a pale hand vanish beneath the black water. Everyone else was shouting, securing ropes, but Isla was already kicking off her shoes. She didn't think. She dove. The world swallowed her whole in one cold, merciless gulp. The sea dragged her under. Darkness coiled around her like smoke, the weight of her uniform pulling her down. She kicked wildly, searching. Then she saw him, a faint shimmer beneath the surface, silver and strange, like moonlight bent through glass. He wasn't sinking like a man. He drifted, eyes closed, his hair swirling like ink. And then, something else. A flash. A tail. Isla blinked through the salt water, thinking her mind was lying to her, but the shape was clear. Scales glimmered where legs should be. Her lungs screamed for air, yet she couldn't let go. Wrapping her arms around his chest, she kicked upwards with all her strength, dragging him toward the light. The surface exploded above her, rain, thunder, wind, and she gasped, hauling him onto a floating life buoy. His lips were blue, no pulse. "Please," she begged, pressing her palms to his chest, "please don't die." Her tears mixed with rain as she performed CPR, her breath trembling each time she pressed down. The waves slammed against the hull, but Isla didn't stop. Then, he gasped. The man's chest jerked and water poured from his mouth. His eyes flew open, bright, unnatural turquoise, glowing faintly in the dark. For a moment, they locked eyes, and Isla froze. The storm seemed to pause with them. You saved me," he rasped, his voice melodic yet strange, like a sound that didn't belong to this world. She blinked through the salt water, thinking her mind was lying to her, but the shape was clear. Scales glimmered where legs should be. Her lungs screamed for air, yet she couldn't let go. Wrapping her arms around his chest, she kicked upwards with all her strength, dragging him toward the light. The surface exploded above her, rain, thunder, wind, and she gasped, hauling him onto a floating life buoy. His lips were blue, no pulse. "Please," she begged, pressing her palms to his chest, "please don't die." Her tears mixed with rain as she performed CPR, her breath trembling each time she pressed down. The waves slammed against the hull, but Isla didn't stop. Then, he gasped. The man's chest jerked and water poured from his mouth. His eyes flew open, bright, unnatural turquoise, glowing faintly in the dark. For a moment, they locked eyes, and Isla froze. The storm seemed to pause with them. You saved me," he rasped, his voice melodic yet strange, like a sound that didn't belong to this world. She blinked through the salt water. "Don't talk. We need to—" But before she could finish, another wave crashed and tore the life buoy from her grasp. He grabbed her wrist, his strength shocking, as if he wasn't weak at all. "Hold on," he whispered. "Whatever happens, don't look back." Before she could ask what he meant, the waves swallowed them both. Isla screamed as the ocean yanked her down again, but this time she didn't feel water. She felt wind. The world twisted, blue turned silver, thunder became silence, and when her eyes opened, she was no longer in the storm. She was in air that shimmered like glass, surrounded by faint glowing orbs. The man floated before her, completely conscious now, his lower body wrapped in scales of pale gold. A mermaid, no, a merman hovered before her, eyes blazing like sunlight underwater. Isla tried to speak, but her throat caught. "You shouldn't have come," he said softly, sorrow shattering his face. "My world doesn't let humans leave once they've seen it." Her pulse thundered in her ears. What are you?" His expression faltered, half apology, half awe. "A prince who owes you a life." Isla reached out, trembling. "A prince?" He nodded once, then lifted his hand, pressing it against her forehead. Light spilled from his palm, warm and dizzying. "You won't remember this. You'll wake up safe, but I'll find you again." She tried to protest, but her voice drowned in the golden light. When she opened her eyes next, she was lying on a deck chair, rain dripping gently from the eaves. The storm was gone. The crew surrounded her, shouting questions, but her mind was blank. She remembered diving, then nothing, only a strange warmth in her chest and the faint image of glowing turquoise eyes that refused to fade. Far beneath the ship, in the quiet depths of the ocean, the mermaid prince turned away, whispering her name. Isla. He didn't know that in a week, he'd meet him again, on land, wearing a suit, a smile, and a name tag that read, Kai Durrell, CEO, Ocean Star Cruises. Glided peacefully toward the coast of Santorini. A week had passed since the storm. The passengers had already moved on, sharing stories of lightning and lost luggage, but Isla couldn't forget the eyes she saw that night, glowing turquoise, almost alive. She'd convinced herself it was a dream. The ship's medic said she'd nearly drowned. Oxygen loss could explain hallucinations. Still, something in her heart whispered no. Something about that man, his voice, his warmth, felt too real to be imagined. As she wiped down the bar counter on deck 7, she glanced at the horizon, watching sunlight ripple like scales across the sea. She sighed softly. "Whoever you were, thank you for letting me live." Little did she know, those same turquoise eyes were watching her from the upper deck balcony, hidden behind dark sunglasses and a perfectly pressed suit. Kai Durrell looked every inch the billionaire CEO the papers claimed he was. Tailored navy suit, gold cufflinks, and a calm authority that made even the ship's captain nervous. But behind that perfect disguise was the same merman Isla had pulled from the waves. Since that night, he'd walked on borrowed time, half human, half what he truly was. The transformation, his father had warned, was forbidden. No prince of the ocean was to linger on land for long. Yet, Kai couldn't stay away. Every night since the rescue, he dreamt of her, her trembling hands, her voice breaking as she begged him to live. He remembered the warmth of her touch more vividly than the ocean's song. And now, as he walked the marble floors of his own cruise line, every step echoed a silent promise to find her again and protect her from the storm that hadn't truly ended. "New CEO inspection today," Isla's supervisor, Petra, said, snapping her out of her thoughts. "Smile extra wide, corporate loves a cheerful crew." Isla nodded, adjusting her name tag. She hadn't met the CEO before. Rumors said he was reclusive, running the company from afar. The staff whispered that he'd taken over after a mysterious family tragedy. "He's young," Petra added, lowering her voice, "and absurdly handsome. But don't stare, he's engaged or something." Isla laughed nervously, wiping the same glass twice. She didn't care who he was. She just wanted to keep her job. After the storm, she'd fallen behind on her hours, and money was tight. She couldn't afford mistakes. When the elevator doors slid open behind her, she turned, plastering on her best polite smile. But it vanished as soon as her gaze locked with his. Those eyes. Turquoise. Sharp. Familiar. Her glass slipped from her hand and shattered. Kai froze, the faintest flicker of emotion crossing his calm facade. He'd imagined this moment countless times, but seeing her again, alive, real, breathing, nearly broke his composure. "You must be Miss Marin," he said smoothly, his voice steady as his pulse thundered. Isla blinked, trying to form words. Your employer," he interrupted, smiling faintly, "and I believe you dropped something." He knelt, picking up the glass with gloved hands, but his eyes never left hers. For a brief second, his skin caught the light, and she saw it, the faintest shimmer of scales along his wrist, gone as quickly as it appeared. She stumbled back, heart racing. "No, that's impossible." Kai straightened, his smile fading into something softer. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Isla forced a laugh. "Just nerves, sir. I've never met the boss before." He nodded slowly. "Neither have I." The word struck her like a strange echo, though she didn't understand why. As he walked away, his cologne lingered, sea salt and cedarwood, a scent that stirred something deep inside her. The rest of the day blurred. She went through motions, smiling at guests, serving cocktails, laughing on cue, but her mind was elsewhere. She kept seeing those eyes, those impossible eyes, and hearing the whisper from her dreams. "You'll wake up safe, but I'll find you again." That night, when the ship docked under a red sunset, she stood alone on the pier, the waves brushing the shore. Somewhere far below, the ocean hummed like a heartbeat, and on the balcony above, Kai watched her again, his expression unreadable. "You remember me," he murmured under his breath, "even if you don't know why." The wind caught his tie as he turned away, whispering his vow into the dusk. "I'll make you remember." The night was still, too still. The Aurora Star floated quietly in the open sea, its passengers asleep beneath the velvet darkness. Isla lay awake in her tiny cabin, listening to the low hum of the engines and the faint drip of condensation from the ceiling. She should have been exhausted after her double shift, but her mind wouldn't rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the same image, a flash of light beneath black water, a man's face, and a whisper she couldn't quite recall. "You'll wake up safe." The voice echoed in her head, like a melody half remembered. She sat up suddenly, heart pounding. Her sheets were damp, not with sweat, but with salt water. She touched her arm. Tiny scales, silver and shimmering, vanished under her fingertips. "No," she breathed. "No, this isn't real." But the scent of the sea clung to her skin, and somewhere outside her window, something moved beneath the waves, watching. The next morning, she tried to shake it off. Dream, hallucination, stress, anything but what it felt like, a warning. On her way to the staff cafeteria, she caught sight of Kai again, standing alone by the observation deck, hands resting on the glass as the sunrise painted the sea gold. He looked tired, his expression softer than before. When he turned and saw her, his face changed, just slightly, a flicker of emotion too fast to name. He approached, voice low. "Rough night?" She blinked. "How did you look like someone who's been fighting the ocean in her sleep," he said gently. Her throat tightened. "You talk like it knows me." Kai smiled faintly. "Maybe it does." He handed her a small pendant, a teardrop of blue crystal on a silver chain. "I found this after the storm. Thought it might belong to you." She frowned. "It's beautiful, but I've never seen it before." "You will, when it's time." All day she couldn't stop touching the pendant. It pulsed faintly, warm against her skin, like a living thing. Each time she looked at it, flashes came, her diving through the storm, the man's glowing eyes, and the words, "Don't look back." During lunch, she spilled a tray of drinks after the sounds of rushing waves filled her ears out of nowhere. Petra scolded her, but Isla barely heard. That night, she stood again at the edge of the deck, gripping the pendant tightly. "Who are you?" she whispered to the dark sea. The wind shifted, the water shimmered. And then, his reflection. Kai stood beside her, but in the glass of the water she saw something else. A tail, gold and luminous, flicking once before fading. Her breath hitched. She turned, trembling. "What are you?" He didn't answer at first, just looked at her with sadness. "The one you saved, and the one who can't stay." He reached out, brushing his thumb across her cheek. The touch sent a strange calm through her, like the hush of waves before dawn. "Why me? Why save me that night?" His expression darkened. "Because the ocean demanded a debt I couldn't repay. Because you were drowning and I couldn't let the sea take you." Isla shook her head. "That makes no sense." "It will," he said softly. "You were never supposed to see my world, Isla. But when you pulled me from that storm, you crossed the line between two realms. The sea remembers its trespassers, and it remembers the ones who dared to love them." She stepped back, her heart twisting. "Love?" But before she could ask again, thunder rolled. No thunderclouds, just a sound rising deep from below, ancient and angry. Kai's eyes widened. "They found me." The ocean below churned violently, glowing with an eerie blue light. Isla stumbled to the railing as tendrils of water rose like living ropes, lashing at the ship's hull. Alarms blared, passengers screamed above deck, but none of them saw what Isla did. Shadows moving in the depths, sleek and fast. Kai grabbed her hand. "Listen to me," he said urgently. "Whatever happens, don't take off the pendant. It's the only thing keeping them from dragging you under." "Who? What are they?" she cried. His gaze was fierce now, the turquoise of his eyes burning. "My father's guards. The sea wants me back." Before she could respond, the deck beneath them shook. Water exploded upward, knocking them apart. She fell hard against the railing, gasping as she saw Kai's silhouette vanish in the spray. The last thing she heard before darkness took her was his voice calling her, "Isla!" and the crash of the ocean swallowing him whole. When Isla opened her eyes, the sky was the color of bruised lavender. Waves whispered against the sand, the air thick with salt and silence. She coughed hard, rolling onto her side as sunlight stung her eyes. For a long moment, she didn't move, her mind still half trapped between nightmare and waking. The last thing she remembered was water, endless water, and Kai's voice vanishing into the storm. Now she lay on a deserted beach, surrounded by palm trees, bent in strange shapes, like they'd been twisted by unseen hands. Her uniform was torn, her pendant still glowing faintly at her throat. "Hello?" she called hoarsely. No answer. Only the cry of gulls circling high above. Panic crawled up her spine. The Aurora star was gone. No ships in sight. Nothing but sea and sky. "This can't be real," she whispered. But when she looked down, her footprints shimmered faintly on the wet sand, as if the ocean itself was watching her. She followed the shoreline, desperate for any sign of human life. Hours passed, the sun rising high, baking the sand beneath her feet. She found coconuts, driftwood, shells, but no footprints, no debris. Yet the strangest part wasn't the silence. It was the feeling that she wasn't alone. Sometimes, out of the corner of her eye, she saw movement in the surf, slender shadows darting just beneath the surface, quick and graceful. Once she swore she heard her name whispered by the wind. Isla? She spun around, heart pounding. No one. Then, out in the waves, something broke the surface. A fin, silver blue, vanishing as fast as it appeared. Her breath caught. Kai? The ocean answered with a single wave that lapped higher than the rest, almost reaching her knees. She stumbled back, clutching the pendant. It pulsed again, stronger this time, as if reacting to the sea itself. And faintly, under the crash of waves, she heard it. A heartbeat not her own. By nightfall, she'd built a small fire from driftwood and seaweed, its glow flickering against the dark. The pendant's light pulsed in rhythm with the flames. Exhausted, Isla sat beside it, staring out at the endless horizon. Her mind replayed Kai's words. My world doesn't let humans leave once they've seen it. Was this what he meant? Was this island some kind of border between both worlds, his and hers? The sea shimmered under the moonlight, unnaturally calm now, and as she watched, a figure emerged from the surf. Water rolled off him in silver sheets. Kai. His eyes glowed softly, his hair darker, his clothes clinging to him like the sea had shaped them. You shouldn't be here, he said quietly. They'll come for you. She rose slowly, tears welling. You left me. His jaw tightened. I had to. The ocean was calling me back. If I disobeyed, it would have taken you instead. His voice broke slightly. And I couldn't lose you. She took a step closer, the firelight dancing between them. What are you hiding from me, Kai? He hesitated, then lifted his hand, revealing the faint shimmer of scales still clinging to his skin. I'm not just a man in disguise. I'm heir to the Terrassian Deep, one of the 7 underwater kingdoms. My father rules it with iron and fear. I was meant to marry a princess from the Coraline, to unite our waters, but I refused. I escaped to the surface using forbidden magic that lets me walk as human. That storm, it wasn't nature. It was my father's wrath. Isla's lips parted in disbelief. So when I saved you, you saved a fugitive prince. And by touching you, you are marked. The ocean remembers your kindness, but it doesn't forgive interference. He looked out toward the waves, face grim. It's already begun. The ground trembled beneath them, the tide surged higher, glowing faintly blue again. From the depths, silhouettes rose, figures of water and light, armor made of coral and bone. The king's guards. Kai, Isla whispered, backing up. What do they want? You, he said simply, as punishment. He stepped in front of her, his voice turning sharp. Stay behind me. The air thickened, electric with power. The guards emerged fully now, tall, inhuman, their eyes like pearls. The largest one spoke in a voice that rumbled like thunder. Prince Kaleen of Terrassian Deep, you are summoned to answer for your defiance. The human will come as witness to your judgment. Kai's hands clenched. She has nothing to do with this. Then her life will suffice as payment. The guard raised his hand, and water began to twist toward Isla. She screamed. Just as Kai spun, drawing a blade of shimmering liquid from thin air, blocking the strike. The clash sent waves exploding across the shore. Run! He shouted. I'll find you again. And then, the sea swallowed them both. Light faded, and silence replaced the world. Isla drifted through darkness, weightless, surrounded by a soft hum that felt like music from the deep. She opened her eyes slowly, expecting to drown, but she could breathe. The water around her shimmered like liquid glass, and strange glowing fish swam past her like living stars. When she moved, her body felt light, her hair floating around her like silk. "Where?" she whispered, voice echoing as if spoken through song. Then she saw it. The city. Towers of coral and crystal rose from the seabed, spiraling upward in colors no human world had ever known: azure, gold, violet, and silver. Bioluminescent creatures lit the streets. The kingdom of Terrassian deep. Awe and terror filled her chest at once, but her wonder froze when she realized she wasn't alone. Surrounding her were guards with eyes like pearl and armor made of shell. One spoke coldly, "The human awakens." They bound her wrists with strands of kelp that glowed faintly, pulsing with light. Though she floated, she couldn't move freely. Each tug of the bindings felt like being wrapped in energy itself. "Where is Kai?" she demanded, struggling. The guards didn't answer, merely swimming forward with slow, regal movements, dragging her through wide corridors of coral and glass. The deeper they went, the dimmer the light became, until only faint streaks of gold marked the path. Ahead loomed the great throne room, a vast cavern lit by columns of jellyfish suspended in chains. At its center sat a man carved from power itself. Tall, silver-haired, his eyes ancient and pitiless. The Sea King, ruler of Terrassian. His gaze swept over Isla like she was nothing but an insect. "The human girl," he said, voice resonant as thunder through stone. "The one who pulled my son from his rightful punishment." Isla's voice trembled. Punishment? He was dying. The king's lips curled. So should he have. From the shadows behind the throne, Kai appeared. No suit, no pretense, just a prince in gleaming gold armor, tail shimmering like the sun beneath the sea. He looked different here, stronger, sharper, like the water itself obeyed him. But his eyes, those turquoise eyes, still held the same warmth when they met hers. Kai said calmly, "Father, she saved my life." The king's tone turned colder. She interfered with fate. He rose, his trident glowing faintly. "Do you know what happens when a human touches our kind during the storm? The sea marks them. She carries part of your essence now, Killian. That bond is forbidden." Isla felt her heart seize. "Bond," she whispered. Kai's jaw tightened. "Our lives are linked. If one of us dies, the other follows." The king's face twisted with fury. "Then the punishment is clear." He turned his gaze toward Isla. "Erase her memory or end her life." "No!" Kai's shout echoed through the throne room, powerful enough to shake the columns. The guards stiffened. "You can't," he pleaded, swimming forward. "She did nothing wrong." His father's eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. "You broke the law, Kylian. You abandoned your betrothed. You abandoned your kingdom. And for what? A fragile surface dweller who will age and wither while you remain immortal?" The words hit him like spears. "Love is not weakness," Kai said through gritted teeth. "Then prove it," the king hissed. He pointed the trident toward Isla. "Choose, my son, her life or your throne." Silence fell. The water seemed to hold its breath. Isla stared at him, tears floating upward like pearls. "Kai," she whispered. His hands trembled at his sides. To save her, he'd have to renounce his kingdom and the right to ever return to land again. His father leaned closer, voice low and cruel. "One breath, one choice. Which world will you lose?" Kai's eyes met Isla's, and for a heartbeat, the entire ocean fell away. He saw her fear, her confusion, her unshakable kindness that had defied a storm to save him. He knew his answer long before his lips moved. He said, "Her." The word was soft, but carried like thunder. "I choose her." The king's roar shook the sea. The trident flared with blinding light, throwing both of them backward. The guards lunged forward, but Kai moved faster, slicing through their ranks with the flash of his blade. "Go," he shouted to Isla, grabbing her hand. The kelp bindings dissolved under his touch. She gasped as his power surrounded her, the water trembling with magic. "Kai, what are you doing?" "Breaking the only rule that ever mattered," he whispered. A wall of light exploded behind them, tearing open a swirling current. "Hold on to me." She did, and the current swallowed them both, dragging them upward, away from Terrassian and the furious roar of the Sea King that echoed even through the waves. "You cannot escape the ocean's claim." The world burst into chaos and light. Isla gasped as her body slammed against cold air, the roar of the sea crashing around her. They broke through the surface in a violent surge, tangled in salt and moonlight. Kai dragged her toward a fragment of wreckage, one of the crew's lifeboats torn apart by the storm. The wind cut against their faces, but he held her close, his arms trembling. For a long moment, they simply breathed, the air thick with rain and fear. Then, Isla realized something was wrong. The golden glow that always shimmered faintly beneath his skin was fading. "Kai, your eyes," she whispered. They were dimming, the turquoise dulling to gray. He turned away. "It's the price," he murmured. "Every minute I spend above the surface, my power drains. I'm no longer bound to the ocean, but it's still trying to reclaim me." Lightning flashed above them, and for the first time, Isla understood. Love had saved him, but it might also destroy him. They reached shore by dawn, stumbling through wet sand as the waves retreated behind them like retreating ghosts. The beach was empty, eerily still, only gulls circling overhead. Kai fell to his knees, breathing hard, hands sinking into the sand. The faint traces of scales along his forearms shimmered weakly before vanishing entirely. He looked human. Too human. Isla crouched beside him, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "You're safe now," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Safe is temporary. My father will not stop until I'm returned or dead." His voice broke slightly on the last word. She swallowed, trying to steady her heart. "Then we run. We hide until we figure out how to stop him." He looked up at her, wonder flickering in his fading eyes. "You'd risk everything for me?" "You already did," she whispered. They found refuge in a small seaside cabin, half swallowed by the dunes, long abandoned but still sturdy. Inside, the scent of salt and wood filled the air. Isla lit an old lantern, casting golden light over his pale face. Kai sat against the wall, exhaustion etched deep into him. He said quietly, When I was young, I used to stare up at the surface and wonder what it felt like to breathe air, to see the sky. Now that I can, it burns. Isla knelt beside him, dipping a cloth in fresh water and pressing it against his skin. Steam rose where it touched. "Your body's rejecting the air," she murmured. He nodded weakly. "I meant to return. The bond is what keeps me alive here. You," his gaze softened, "you are my anchor now." Her heart clenched at his words. "Then I'm not letting go," she said fiercely. But deep down, she could feel it too, the slow pull of the tide in her veins, whispering that something ancient was coming for them both. By the second night, the moon rose full and red over the sea. Isla awoke to find Kai standing at the window, staring out into the dark water. Her reflection flickered, half man, half something else, shimmering like heat haze. "They're close," he said without turning. "I can feel the sentinels in the current. My father sent his hunters." Fear twisted in Isla's stomach. "Then we have to leave." He shook his head. "There's nowhere to go. The sea reaches everywhere." The wind howled through the cracks in the cabin, rattling the walls. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and from the shore came a low, mournful song, a haunting melody that made the air itself vibrate. Kai's eyes widened. "It's them." The song grew louder, pulling at the edges of her mind. Isla clutched her head. "Kai!" He caught her before she fell. "Don't listen," he whispered. "They're trying to call your soul to the water." But the sea didn't stop calling. The song reached its crescendo, and the windows shattered. Water surged through the open door like a living creature, flooding the floor. Figures formed from the tide, merfolk clad in black scales and coral armor. "Prince Callian, your exile ends tonight." Kai pushed Isla behind him, summoning what remained of his power. His hand glowed faintly as a blade of water formed, trembling in his grasp. "If you want her," he said darkly, "you'll have to go through me." The first sentinel lunged. The clash was chaos, water blades, sparks, screams. Isla ducked, heart hammering as the storm outside fused with the one inside. Kai fought like the sea itself, wild, unstoppable. But his strength faltered. One blow struck him down, blood mixing with seawater on the floor. "No," Isla cried, grabbing him. The sentinel raised his weapon, only to freeze mid-air. A surge of power exploded from her palm, blinding and white. The attackers screamed as the wave blasted them back into the ocean. When silence fell, Isla stared at her trembling hands. Kai looked up, weakly smiling. "You've awakened it," he whispered. "Awakened what?" she asked, breathless. "The bond. You carry the sea now." Dawn bled slowly over the horizon, washing the cabin in pale gold. The storm had passed, but the world felt changed. Isla sat by the window, staring at her hands. The same hands that had unleashed a force powerful enough to drive back the ocean itself. They still trembled faintly, glowing with an echo of blue light that pulsed with her heartbeat. Kai slept on a makeshift bed beside her, pale but breathing steadily. His wounds had already begun to knit themselves closed, the salt water drying into faint silver lines across his skin. Isla touched his cheek, and the faint hum in her chest grew stronger, like the tide calling to the shore. "What have you done to me?" she whispered to no one, but deep inside, she already knew. The sea wasn't just inside Kai anymore. It was inside her. bound by blood, by choice, by love. When Kai awoke, his eyes flickered open, brighter than before, burning like twin pieces of the ocean. "You feel it too," he murmured, his voice hoarse but full of awe. Isla nodded slowly. "It's like I can hear the waves even when I close my eyes." He sat up, pain etched into his movements. "You've bonded with the heart of the ocean, Isla. My power responded to your will. It chose you." His words left her breathless. "That's impossible." He smiled faintly. So was a mermaid prince walking on land. Silence filled the space between them, heavy but charged. Outside, gulls cried and the sea whispered secrets only they could hear. Then his expression darkened. "The bond will draw attention. My father will sense it. You're no longer invisible to him." Isla's stomach nodded. "So, you mean he can find me through it?" He nodded. "Unless we sever it or control it." But as their eyes met, neither could imagine breaking something that felt this sacred. For the next few days, they trained in secret. Kai taught her to channel the pulse that ran through her, how to command water without letting it consume her. Each night, under the silver moon, she stood by the waves, eyes closed, hands raised, and the ocean obeyed her like a loyal beast. Ripples spread, swirling in rhythm with her breath. Sometimes she lost control. Waves crashed higher than they should, trees bent under the power. Kai would steady her, his hands firm on her shoulders. "Don't fight the tide," he'd whisper. "Flow with it." Their closeness deepened. Touches lingered, glances burned longer than words. But amid the tenderness, fear still lingered. One evening, as the wind whipped her hair around her face, Isla asked, "What happens if your father reaches us first?" Kai's eyes darkened. "Then he'll take back what belongs to the sea, including you." The thought chilled her, but it also awakened something fierce within her. "Then I'll fight him," she said. He smiled, pride and sorrow mixing in his gaze. "You sound like a queen." The next morning, strange signs appeared along the coast. Dead fish washed the shore, their scales blackened as if burned. The waves moved against the wind. Even the gulls stayed silent. Kai's expression turned grim as he crouched near the water, dipping his fingers in. "It's begun," he whispered. "What has?" Isla asked, clutching her shawl against the chill. "The Sea King's descent. He's crossing into the mortal realm." He stood, his posture suddenly regal, commanding. "He'll tear this coast apart to find us." A storm gathered in the distance, boiling black clouds over the horizon. Isla's heartbeat quickened. "We have to warn people." "No," Kai said sharply. "If humans get involved, they'll die." His words cut through her. "Then what do we do?" she asked, voice trembling. He looked at her, really looked at her, with both fear and reverence. "We prepare. You may be the only one powerful enough to stop him now." Thunder rumbled, as if the ocean itself agreed. That night, Isla couldn't sleep. The bond pulsed stronger than ever, tugging at her chest like an invisible tide. She stepped outside, bare feet sinking into the cold sand. The moon hung low, red as blood. Then she saw it, the ocean glowing faintly, alive with bioluminescent trails. Shapes moved beneath the surface, vast and slow. A voice rose from the depths, not cruel, but ancient, filled with sorrow. "Child of air and water, return what was taken." The sound echoed in her mind. She stumbled back, clutching her head. Kai rushed out, catching her. "He spoke to you, didn't he?" She nodded, tears streaking her face. "He called me. Child." Kai's jaw tightened. "Then it's worse than I thought." The sea roared louder, as if angered by the air itself. He looked toward the horizon, eyes burning with defiance. He knows who you are now, Isla, and he's coming. The storm came like a living thing. Waves taller than houses crashed against the shore, tearing trees from their roots. Lightning slashed the sky open in silver veins. Isla and Kai stood on the cliff above the roaring sea, wind ripping at their clothes, hair plastered to their faces. The air smelled of salt and electricity, raw, primal. Then the ocean began to glow. A deep, unnatural light shimmered beneath the waves, growing brighter until the surface exploded upward. From the heart of the storm, a colossal figure rose, half man, half ocean itself. His skin shimmered like obsidian coral, and his crown was made of jagged shells. The Sea King. His voice rolled across the coast like thunder. Prince Kylian, you have broken the covenant. Kai's jaw clenched. Father. Isla gripped his hand, her pulse thundering in her ears. The king's gaze turned toward her, sharp, knowing, ancient. And you, the girl who carries my blood. The words hit Isla like a blade. Your blood? She gasped. The king's eyes, vast, glowing poles of deep blue, narrowed. Did he not tell you, child? The tide in your veins is not borrowed. You were born of the sea, a daughter long lost to the surface. Her breath caught, her world tilting. Kyle looked at her, pain flickering in his eyes. Isla, I didn't know. The king's voice boomed again. When you were a child, your mother, one of my daughters, defied the laws and loved a mortal man. To punish her, I tore her from this world and cast you adrift upon the shore. You are of the deep, Isla. You are mine. The revelation shattered through her. Her memories, flashes of childhood dreams of the sea, voices she could never explain, suddenly made sense. She stumbled back, shaking her head. No, I'm human. I grew up on land. The king's expression softened for a moment. You may wear their shape, but your soul belongs to the water. Kai stepped forward, fury burning in his voice. You abandoned her. You punished innocence for love. The king's eyes blazed. And you, my son, have done the same. The sea around them churned violently, responding to his anger. You stole power from the heart of the ocean to bond with her. You've broken the ancient law. Lightning struck between them, splitting the sand. Kai didn't move. Then punish me, he said quietly, but leave her out of this. The king's expression turned cold. It is too late. Her bond has awakened. She stands between two worlds, and that imbalance must be corrected. His gaze shifted to Isla again, heavy with both sorrow and claim. Come home, child. The ocean calls for you. Isla's heart tore in two. The waves below seemed to whisper her name, their song soft and irresistible. But behind her, Kai's trembling hand found hers. Don't go. You belong here, with me. The wind howled, whipping around them in spirals of salt and fury. Isla closed her eyes, the world spinning. The sea called to her blood, but her heart screamed for the man beside her. I can't, she whispered, voice breaking. I can't go. The Sea King's expression darkened, sorrow turning to wrath. Then you choose exile over eternity. He raised his trident and the sea surged upward, forming a wall of water ready to consume them both. Kai wrapped his arms around her, shielding her with his body. Hold on, he shouted. The trident struck. The impact was deafening. For a moment, there was only water, endless, crushing water, and silence. Then a blinding light burst from Isla's chest. The sea screamed. Power poured from her like a living current, forcing the wall of water to split apart. The king staggered, disbelief flashing in his eyes. "What are you?" he demanded. Isla's voice echoed, fierce and steady. "I'm both." The ocean obeyed her. The storm began to retreat, the waves lowering under her command. The glow around her faded slowly, leaving her trembling but alive. The king stood motionless, his crown dimming. For the first time, he looked afraid. "You wield the tide of life and death, a power even I cannot touch." She took a step forward, water swirling gently at her feet. "You call it power, but it's just love that refuses to drown." Kai moved beside her, pride and wonder in his eyes. The king's gaze shifted between them, and something ancient softened within him. "So be it," he said, lowering his trident. "But love always comes with the cost." His form began to fade, dissolving into mist and foam. When the sea rises again, the debt will be due. And with that, he was gone. The ocean calmed, the wind died, and Isla collapsed into Kai's arms, the whisper of waves, their only witness. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind was unbearable. The sky was a bruised gray, heavy and endless. Isla woke to the sound of Kai's heartbeat beneath her ear, steady but faint. They lay together on the wet sand, the tide licking at their feet. She pushed herself up, her body aching, and brushed damp hair from his forehead. "Kai," she whispered. His eyes flittered open, pale, glassy, but alive. He smiled weakly. "You stopped him." "We stopped him," she corrected, though her voice trembled. The ocean lay calm and mirror smooth, as if nothing had happened. But inside her, something burned. Her chest pulsed with an ache that didn't feel human. When she touched her skin, faint blue veins shimmered beneath the surface, pulsing like currents. "Kai," she murmured, fear creeping into her voice. "Something's wrong with me." He tried to rise, but his strength faltered. "It's the bond," he said softly. "It's shifting." They found shelter once again in the ruined cabin by the dunes, though it felt smaller now, haunted by what they'd survived. Kai sat beside the fire, his eyes dim, while Isla stared into the flames, clutching her chest. The pain came in waves, deep and rhythmic. "Tell me the truth," she said quietly. "What's happening to me?" Kai hesitated. When two souls bind through the sea's heart, the power must flow between them. It keeps us alive when we're apart, but it also takes from one to give to the other. Her breath caught. "You mean it's taking my life?" He nodded, anguish shadowing his features. "When I broke from the ocean, I was dying. Your bond gave me strength, but it's feeding on you now." She stared at him, the firelight trembling in her eyes. "So, if I stay, I die. If I leave, you die." He reached for her hand. "There's always been a cost for loving what the ocean forbids." Days passed in quiet desperation. Kai grew stronger as Isla weakened. Her skin grew pale, her reflection faintly luminous in moonlight. Sometimes she'd stand by the water and feel it calling her back, not with fear, but with a strange tenderness, like a mother singing her name. Kai would watch from the shore, guilt written across every line of his face. "You saved me," he said one night. "I'd rather trade places." She smiled faintly. "Don't you dare." Her voice was soft but resolute. "If the sea wanted a price, then I'll choose how to pay it." The wind swept her hair around her face, and in that moment, she looked like she belonged to both worlds. Kai stepped closer, his hand brushing her cheek. "You were never just human," he whispered. "You were the bridge." His lips touched hers, gentle, desperate, tasting of salt and sorrow. But beneath the tenderness, the bond surged violently, blue light crackling around them. They pulled apart, gasping. The sea itself stirred. Something was awakening again. The next morning, the ocean was not where it should have been. The tide had risen overnight, too high, too fast. The air felt heavy, electric. As Isla stepped outside, the horizon looked wrong. Waves stretching toward the land like an approaching army. The king's warning echoed in her mind. When the sea rises again, the debt will be due. Panic clawed at her chest. She rushed back inside. "Kai, it's coming back!" He stood, already sensing it. The sea's reclaiming the balance. Your power disturbed the tide's law. It's trying to take what it's owed. The earth trembled beneath them. "Then we fight it," she said. "We fight fate." He shook his head. "It's not fate, Isla. It's me. The sea wants its prince." The words hung in the air like thunder. "No," she cried, grabbing his arm. "I won't lose you. If I stay, you die. If I leave, maybe both worlds can live." His eyes glistened. "Let me go." The waves thundered closer, towering walls of water surging toward the cabin. Wind tore through the air and the sky split open with rain. Isla turned to face the storm, her silhouette framed by lightning. Isla clung to him, sobbing. "You promised we'd be together." He cupped her face, his own tears mixing with the rain. "We will be, in every tide that touches the shore." Then he kissed her one last time, a kiss that tasted of salt and sorrow. He stepped into the storm, his form glowing brighter with each step. "Kai!" she screamed, but the wind swallowed his name. The sea rose, engulfing him in a burst of blue light. When the waves finally fell away, only silence remained. Isla collapsed to her knees, staring at the calm that followed. The ocean was still again, but in the hush between waves, a voice whispered in her mind, "I am with you, always." And for the first time, she wept not for loss, but for love that refused to drown. The days that followed felt hollow, like time itself had forgotten to move. The sea was calm again, unnaturally calm, as if nothing had ever happened. But Isla could feel him everywhere, in the wind that brushed her cheek, in the whispering surf at dawn, even in her dreams where his voice lingered just beyond reach. She returned to the cabin each night, unwilling to leave the place that still carried his warmth. The villagers who lived miles away spoke of strange lights beneath the waves and soft songs that lulled them to sleep. They called it the ghost tide. Isla knew better. It wasn't a ghost. It was him. Sometimes when the world was quiet, she'd stand barefoot on the shore, close her eyes, and feel the pull deep inside her chest. The bond that had not broken, only changed. Love, she realized, didn't vanish when a body did. It became the water you breathed, the silence between your heartbeats. Weeks passed before she dared to return to the cruise port. The world of humans looked the same, bright, noisy, oblivious. But Isla felt like she didn't belong anymore. She walked through the bustling harbor in her old uniform, her once vivid eyes now carrying the calm depth of the sea. Some of her coworkers recognized her, their faces pale with disbelief. Isla? We thought you were dead. She smiled faintly. I came back. But even as she spoke, the lie burned her tongue. She wasn't truly back. She was caught between worlds. When the CEO's office door opened, a man's voice called her name. Her heart stopped. For a moment, she swore she saw him standing there. But it wasn't Kai. Just another executive with cold eyes and a polite smile. Miss Wren, he said, you're wanted for questioning about the shipwreck. She followed, her mind fogged. Every word, every face felt distant, unreal. The human world moved on, but she was still listening for the ocean. That night, she returned to the beach, unable to bear the city lights any longer. The moon was high, washing the sand in silver. The sea looked peaceful, too peaceful. She sank to her knees, her fingers digging into the wet sand. You promised, she whispered to the waves. You said you'd always be here. The ocean didn't answer. Only the slow rhythm of the tide came back to her, steady as breathing. Then, so faint, she almost thought it was her imagination, a ripple of warmth spread through her chest. Her pulse quickened. The bond. It wasn't gone. She pressed her hand to the water's surface. It glowed faintly beneath her touch. Kai? She breathed. The tide responded with a single wave that rolled gently to her feet, soaking her dress. She smiled through her tears. You're still here. The ache in her heart eased slightly, replaced by something deeper, a quiet knowing. Love, she realized, didn't vanish when a body did. It became the water you breathed, the silence between your heartbeats. Weeks passed before she dared to return to the cruise port. The world of humans looked the same, bright, noisy, oblivious, but Isla felt like she didn't belong anymore. She walked through the bustling harbor in her old uniform, her once vivid eyes now carrying the calm depth of the sea. Some of her coworkers recognized her, their faces pale with disbelief. Isla, we thought you were dead. She smiled faintly. I came back. But even as she spoke, the lie burned her tongue. She wasn't truly back. She was caught between worlds. When the CEO's office door opened, a man's voice called her name. Her heart stopped. For a moment, she swore she saw him standing there. But it wasn't Kai, just another executive with cold eyes and a polite smile. Miss Wren, he said, you're wanted for questioning about the shipwreck. She followed, her mind fogged. Every word, every face felt distant, unreal. The human world moved on, but she was still listening for the ocean. That night, she returned to the beach, unable to bear the city lights any longer. The moon was high, washing the sand in silver. The sea looked peaceful, too peaceful. She sank to her knees, her fingers digging into the wet sand. You promised, she whispered to the waves. You said you'd always be here. The ocean didn't answer. Only the slow rhythm of the tide came back to her, steady as breathing. Then, so faint, she almost thought it was her imagination, a ripple of warmth spread through her chest. Her pulse quickened. The bond. It wasn't gone. She pressed her hand to the water's surface. It glowed faintly beneath her touch. Kai? She breathed. The tide responded with a single wave that rolled gently to her feet, soaking her dress. She smiled through her tears. You're still here. The ache in her heart eased slightly, replaced by something deeper, a quiet knowing. Love. She didn't die. It just adapted. Over the next few weeks, strange things began to happen. The villagers spoke of clear waters returning to their shore, of sea creatures appearing near the reefs that had long been barren. Fishermen said the tides now moved differently, gentler, safer. Isla knew why. Kai's sacrifice had changed the sea itself. One night, as she walked the shoreline, she noticed tiny lights swirling beneath her steps, bioluminescent trails following her movements like stars underfoot. The sea seemed to breathe with her. She felt his energy woven through it, alive and watching. And in the quietest moments, she'd hear his voice, not in words, but in feeling, comfort, strength, pride. One evening, she whispered into the surf, "I don't know how to live without you." The waves answered softly, retreating and returning, as if to say, "You already are." And for the first time since his disappearance, she smiled, not out of joy, but acceptance. By the time spring came, Isla had changed completely. Her once dark hair shimmered faintly under moonlight, strands glowing like liquid silver. Her eyes mirrored the sea's shifting hues. The locals began to call her the woman of the waves. Some came seeking blessings, others simply drawn by curiosity. She gave them peace, not knowing how she did it, just that the water listened when she spoke. And every night, she'd walk to the edge of the sea, where the tide whispered stories only she could hear. Though her heart still ached, it no longer broke. Because she had learned something precious. Love that runs as deep as the ocean never truly ends. It only changes shape. And somewhere, far beneath the waves, a prince watched her from the deep, smiling every time her laughter touched the tide. The first time Isla heard the ocean call her by name, it wasn't with sound, it was with memory. The morning sun had barely touched the horizon when she woke to the sound of waves crashing harder than usual. The air hummed with strange energy, thick and electric. Drawn outside, she stepped onto the sand barefoot, her heart racing for reasons she couldn't explain. The sea looked different today, darker, wilder, alive. As she approached, the tide surged toward her feet like a living thing, curling around her ankles in soft spirals. Then she heard it. Not a voice, not truly, but a vibration deep inside her chest, like the echo of a heartbeat that wasn't her own. "Isla, come home." The sound wasn't from above or below, it came from within the water itself. She froze, trembling. "Kai?" she whispered. The wind swirled violently, lifting her hair, and the water pulsed in response, glowing faintly turquoise. It wasn't just calling, it was choosing. That night, she couldn't sleep. The ocean's hum followed her everywhere, through dreams, through silence, through every thud of her heart. She dreamed of the deep blue again, spiraling tunnels of light, strange runes carved into coral, and a throne made of obsidian that shimmered like glass. A voice echoed, "The tide must rise again." She woke, drenched in sweat, her skin damp with salt, though she hadn't touched the sea. Fear warred with curiosity, but destiny was relentless. By dawn, she found herself walking back toward the waves, drawn as though her blood itself recognized the call. She noticed new symbols etched faintly along her wrists, marks that glowed when touched by seawater. "What's happening to me?" she murmured, holding her trembling hands up to the moonlight. The answer came in the form of a sudden massive wave that rose high, too high, and then split open down the center. Inside the split, she saw something move, a silhouette, watching, waiting. She stumbled back, her heart pounding. The wave collapsed, but not before she caught a glimpse of eyes, bright, glowing silver, unmistakably familiar. "Kai!" she gasped, rushing forward. The water stilled, and in that silence, a shimmer spread across the sea's surface, forming shapes, his outline, His face, and then his voice, soft as foam. Isla? She fell to her knees, tears springing to her eyes. You're alive? His form flickered, fading in and out like mist. Not as you knew me, but I'm bound to the sea, and to you. The water pulsed with his words, glowing brighter with every syllable. You carry my mark now, Isla. The ocean recognizes you as its keeper. You felt it, haven't you? The pull, the power. She nodded, trembling. What do I do? His voice was a whisper now. Listen to it. Trust it. And when the deep calls your name again, follow it. Then, like a ripple fading into stillness, he was gone. For days, Isla wrestled with the truth. Her reflection in the mirror seemed less human each morning. Her skin carried a faint shimmer. Her hair seemed to move with the air itself. And when she cried, her tears glowed faintly blue. At first, she thought she was losing her mind, but then came the dreams again, this time more vivid, more urgent. She saw flashes of underwater cities, glowing orbs floating like lanterns, and creatures bowing in reverence. Each night, she'd wake gasping, her lungs burning as though she'd been holding her breath for hours. By the fifth night, she understood the ocean wasn't just calling, it was remembering her. Her bond with Kai had awakened something ancient, something royal. She began spending hours by the water, listening. The waves began to speak back, not in words, but in visions. They showed her the world below, fractured and waiting, a kingdom without its prince, a crown without an heir. One evening, as lightning danced on the horizon, she stood at the water's edge and whispered, If I go, will I come back? The tide hesitated, as if mourning the answer it couldn't give. The wind stilled and the water shimmered with a faint turquoise glow that seemed to spread from her feet outward, rippling across the waves like light over glass. Isla closed her eyes. Then so be it, and with that, she stepped forward. The sea rose to meet her like an embrace, curling around her shoulders, her waist, her face. The air left her lungs in a gasp, and then she wasn't breathing air anymore. She was breathing water. Her body moved differently, gracefully, as though it had known this forever. The deeper she sank, the brighter the world became. Coral palaces, schools of light, and in the distance, a throne of obsidian waiting for her, glowing softly beneath the waves. The ocean welcomed her, not with violence, but with memory. As Isla descended, ribbons of light twined around her like threads of silk, guiding her deeper into a realm no surface dweller was meant to see. Her lungs no longer burned. Her heartbeat matched the slow rhythmic pulse of the sea itself. The deeper she went, the more the water glowed. Soft blues, faint purples, streaks of gold dancing across her arms like whispers of old magic. She could feel Kai's essence everywhere. The sea remembered him, mourned him, still carried his name in its current. Then, out of the dark, something enormous appeared. A gate. Two massive coral doors carved with spirals and runes that pulsed as she approached. The symbols on her wrists began to shine in response. The doors groaned open with a sound like thunder rolling through eternity, revealing a city unlike anything she had imagined. Towers of crystal coral, glowing plants swaying in slow rhythm, and merfolk frozen in stunned silence as they turned to face her. Their eyes widened. Some dropped to one knee. One whispered in awe, "She bears his light." Isla drifted through the city's heart, surrounded by wonder and fear. Every glance she received was a mixture of reverence and sorrow, as if they saw both their salvation and their loss reflected in her. The current led her toward a vast central dome, where a single throne of obsidian coral sat untouched, its base entwined with silver seaweed and pearls. Above it, an enormous mural depicted Kai, his form half human, half mer, crown ablaze with ocean light. "He was our prince," a voice said behind her. Isla turned to find an elderly merwoman, her tail shimmering like sapphire glass. He vanished to the surface world, searching for freedom and for love. The woman's gaze softened. "You're the one he found." Isla's throat tightened. "He's gone," she whispered. The merwoman nodded solemnly. "Not gone, bound. The seed keeps what it loves. He gave himself to it, to protect us all. You carry what remains of his power." Isla looked down at her glowing wrists, trembling. "Then what am I?" The merwoman's lips curved faintly. "You are the heir." The word echoed through her like a tidal wave. Heir. It didn't feel possible. She was just a girl who worked on a cruise ship, who'd fallen for a stranger she barely understood. But the ocean didn't lie. It had chosen her. The merfolk began to gather, forming a circle around the throne. "You were not meant to find him," another voice said. A tall, fierce-looking merman with scars etched across his chest. "But you did. You saved him. That act bound your soul to ours." He stepped closer. "The deep recognizes your heart as royal." Isla felt dizzy. The throne pulsed faintly, as though sensing her hesitation. The elder gestured toward it. "Touch it." Isla reached out, her fingers trembling, and brushed the obsidian coral. A surge of light burst through the dome. Visions flooded her mind. Kai standing before an ancient council, offering himself to stop a war. Kai whispering her name as he sank into the sea. Kai's heart splitting into two, one half giving to the ocean, one hidden within her. When she gasped and pulled back, her tears shimmered silver. She finally understood. He hadn't died. He'd given her the part of him that loved. The throne's glow dimmed and silence filled the dome. The merfolk waited, watching her every breath. Isla stepped back, shaking, her voice barely a whisper. "If I'm his heir, then what does that mean for me?" The elder's gaze turned grave. "It means the ocean has a choice. It can remain restless and grieving, or rise again under new light." A tremor rolled through the seabed. The current began to twist violently, as if reacting to her fear. "It senses your doubt," the elder warned. "You must choose. Return to the surface and live as mortal, or claim what he gave you and never look back." Isla looked around at the kingdom, the faces filled with desperate hope and the memories of Kai woven into every current. "He loved this place," she whispered. "And he loved you," the elder said gently. "That love made you part of this world, Isla. You can't unmake that." The current surged again, this time softer, warmer, like a heartbeat wrapping around her body. The ocean waited for her decision. Slowly, Isla stepped forward. The light gathered around her hands, wrapping her in turquoise ribbons that shimmered like breath made visible. She placed both palms on the throne again, and this time she didn't hesitate. The energy pulsed through her, not burning, but healing, filling the hollow ache she had carried since losing Kai. Her hair floated like golden fire in the dark, her eyes glowing faintly blue. The marks on her wrists stretched up her arms, merging with the light around her. The throne's darkness turned to gold, then to pearl. When she opened her mouth, her voice wasn't just hers, it echoed like 1,000 waves. "If the sea loved him, then it must love me too. I accept." The entire city trembled, then bloomed in color. Coral towers reigniting, the current lifting like breath after long sorrow. Somewhere in the distance she heard his voice again, faint but proud. "You chose right, Isla." Her tears floated upward like stars, vanishing into the light. For the first time since he was gone, the ocean felt alive again. The first sign came as thunder, not from clouds, but from the water itself. The surface of the ocean rippled violently, sending tremor through the decks of the Ocean Pearl, the cruise ship Isla once worked on. Taurus screamed as the clear blue horizon darkened without warning, clouds forming from nowhere, twisting into black spirals. Waves rose like moving walls, slamming against the hull with a bone-shaking force. Captain Rhodes, gripping the rail, shouted orders over the chaos. "Secure all passengers! Get us into the lee!" But no lee existed, only open water that churned with impossible fury. Lightning flashed, and for one brief instant, the crew saw something beneath the waves. A faint glowing light, turquoise and golden, pulsing in time with the thunder. "It's not natural," one of the engineers stammered. "It's like the sea's alive." And deep beneath them, Isla opened her eyes, sensing the panic above. The ocean's heartbeat now pulsed through her veins, and she could feel the imbalance between two worlds. The human realm collapsing under the weight of a secret it was never meant to touch. In the underwater city, chaos mirrored the surface. The newly revived merfolk felt the storm ripple through the kingdom like 1,000 currents tearing in opposite directions. "The barrier is failing," warned the elder. "The ocean's magic is spilling upward. Her awakening has broken the divide." Isla stood at the center of the glowing dome, her hands clenched, her mind split between grief and duty. "Then I have to stop it." The merman with the scars shook his head. "You are the source, Isla. Only your control can bring calm or destroy both worlds." Her heart raced. "Then teach me." The elder swam closer, placing a hand over Isla's heart. "Remember what bound the sea to silence. His sacrifice, his love. That love is your anchor." Isla closed her eyes, letting the weight of Kai's name settle inside her chest. She focused on the rhythm, the pulse she'd first felt the night she heard the ocean whisper. Slowly, the chaos around her dimmed. But far above, the storm raged harder, unwilling to yield. Up on the Ocean Pearl, passengers huddled inside as rain pounded the decks like falling stones. One of them, a young deckhand named Marin, who had once been Isla's friend, clutched a photo of her. "She vanished right before this happened," she whispered, voice trembling. "The day the CEO disappeared too." She stared through the porthole and in the distance saw it. A faint figure beneath the surface, luminous and graceful, hair floating like sunlight under glass. "No way," she breathed. A flash of lightning illuminated the shape again, clearer now. It was Isla, alive but changed. The crew shouted as the waves lifted the ship, tilting it dangerously. "She's trying to help us," Marin screamed, gripping the rail as the vessel groaned. And indeed, beneath the surface, Isla raised her arms, summoning calm from the depths. But her power met resistance. The storm wasn't entirely hers. It was his. Kai's spirit, bound to the sea, had fused with its wildest tides. He was trying to protect her, but the ocean was confused. Two wills, one current, colliding. Lightning forked across the sky, striking the mast. The ship's lights flickered, then died. For a heartbeat, all was darkness, until a glow began to rise from below. A colossal wave, taller than the ship itself, surged upward, carrying with it a figure of light. Isla broke through the surface, water cascading around her like liquid fire. Gas filled the air as passengers saw her, translucent fins tracing her arms, eyes glowing sea blue, her voice echoing through the storm. "Stay calm," she commanded, but her words carried more than sound. They carried power. The wind hesitated. The waves stilled for just a moment. "She's one of them," a passenger whispered. "No," said Marin, tears streaming. "She's saving us." Isla reached toward the ship, her fingertips brushing its hull, infusing it with calm energy. but the effort drained her. Every second she held back the storm, the ocean fought harder to reclaim her. Kai, she whispered, struggling. I can't hold it. The thunder answered, rolling like his voice through the clouds. You don't have to hold it alone. Then through the wall of rain and lightning, a silhouette emerged out of water itself. Kai. His spirit, half sea, half light, rose beside her. He reached out his hand, the storm bending around his touch. You brought balance. Now let's finish it together. Isla's tears merged with the rain as she grasped his hand. Their connection reignited the water with dazzling light, sending waves of energy rippling across the ocean. The storm began to break apart, clouds unraveling, lightning fading, the sea settling into a calm glass. When it was over, the ocean pearl floated steady once more, its passengers weeping with relief. But Isla and Kai were gone, vanished beneath the surface, swallowed by the soft, shimmering blue. Only a single shell remained on the ship's deck, glowing faintly before it cracked open and whispered a sound no one could forget. Love doesn't drown, it transforms. When Isla opened her eyes, there was no sky, no sun, no seafloor, only endless blue light that seemed to breathe. The world around her shimmered like a dream half remembered, weightless, soundless, eternal. Her hair floated around her like golden silk, her heartbeat soft and slow, almost like it belonged to someone else. She didn't know if she was alive or something beyond it. Then, through the luminous haze, she saw him, Kai, standing only a few feet away, his form radiant, his eyes like fragments of the moon reflected on water. Is this death? She whispered. He smiled faintly. It's the in-between, the place where choices echo before they become real. His voice was warm, familiar, grounding. She wanted to run to him, but every step felt like moving through clouds. When she reached him, her hand trembled as she touched his chest. He was warm, solid, real. I thought I lost you, she breathed. Kai's hand covered hers. You did, but love is stubborn. It always finds a way back. Around them, fragments of memories floated like drifting glass. Images of the cruise ship, her laughter, his human disguise, the night she'd pulled him from the waves. She watched them shimmer, looping endlessly. All of this, she said softly, was because I saved you? He shook his head. Because you saw me. Not the prince, not the CEO, just me. His voice trembled slightly. The day you pulled me from the sea, I was running from everything, my kingdom, my duty, even myself. But when you touched me, the ocean quieted. It was as if it recognized your soul before I did. Isla felt her throat tighten. And now? She asked. Now, he said, stepping closer, the ocean wants balance again. It's offering you a choice, Isla. Return to your world, the one of air and sky, and forget me, or stay beneath, where time doesn't touch you, and reign beside me forever. The words fell like waves against her heart. Stay or go, memory or love, life or legend. Isla turned away, staring into the endless glow that stretched before them. If I go back, she said slowly, I lose this. You, everything. We built. Kai nodded, his expression unreadable. And if you stay, he whispered, you lose the world that shaped you, the people who need your light above. Silence hung between them, fragile as glass. The truth was cruel in its symmetry. Both choices meant loss. She walked in slow circles, her fingers trailing ribbons of glowing water. When you were gone, the ocean still felt like you. Every wave, every whisper, it carried your name. I thought maybe love was just grief that refused to die. Kai smiled sadly. Love is grief that learned how to sing. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You don't owe this world anything, Isla. You've already saved it. Her eyes met his. But I owe you the truth. She took his hands, her voice trembling. If I stay, it has to be my choice, not destiny's. Kai's gaze softened with something between pride and sorrow. Then choose with your heart, not your fear. The world around them shifted. The light dimmed, and in its place rose visions of both realms. On one side, the ocean's palace, serene, timeless, endless beauty. On the other, the surface world, stars, storms, and people laughing under sunlit skies. She could almost hear Marin's voice calling her name. Her chest ached. Both worlds are beautiful, she murmured, but beauty isn't life. Kai's hand trembled in hers. If you choose to go back, I won't follow you. This place is my boundary, my final promise to the sea. She blinked back tears. And if I stay? He smiled faintly, his voice breaking. Then you'll never drown again. The light between them began to twist, forming a spiral of blue and gold energy, the crossing point between worlds. Its pull was gentle but absolute. The time to decide had come. She looked up at him, her heart torn between air and water, between memory and eternity. When I first met you, you told me the sea had no mercy. Kai nodded slowly. I was wrong. It just didn't have you yet. A trembling laugh escaped her, soft and wet with tears. She stepped closer, pressing her forehead against his. Then hear me now, she whispered. If love made me human, it will also make me brave. She kissed him, slow, deep, and final, the kind of kiss that changes the tide itself. As they parted, she stepped back into the spiral of blue and gold energy. Kai's hand lingered, fingers brushing hers until only their fingertips touched. I'll always find you, he said, in every wave. And then the world folded inward. The blue vanished, the current snapped, and she was falling upward, breaking through the surface into air, coughing, gasping, alive. The storm was gone, the ocean was calm, but the water around her shimmered faintly, whispering her name one last time. When Isla woke, the sky was pale gold. Dawn spread across the horizon like a slow exhale after years of holding breath. She lay on the quiet shore, soaked and trembling, sand clinging to her skin. For a moment, she didn't move. She simply listened. The waves rolled softly, calm and rhythmic, as if the ocean itself had fallen asleep beside her. A distant gull cried overhead. Everything was still. Slowly, she sat up, her heart heavy but alive. The marks on her wrists glowed faintly in the sunlight, then faded like morning mist. She looked out at the water. It looked ordinary now, peaceful, unremarkable, but she knew better. You kept your promise, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the tide. A single wave lapped against her ankles, gentler than a kiss. The water shimmered for just a moment, catching the light like silver glass, and she smiled through her tears. The ocean remembered, and somehow she could feel him smiling back. Days passed before the world found her. The ocean pearl, battered but afloat, had made it back to the nearest harbor. The news had spread everywhere. Mystery woman found at sea after miracle storm. Cameras flashed, reporters crowded, questions poured. But Isla had no answers to give, only silence, and a smile that belonged to another world. Marin found her first, running into her arms, sobbing. "We thought you were gone," she cried. Isla held her tightly. Maybe I was, she murmured, but the sea gave me back. She never spoke of what she'd seen beneath the waves or the man she loved who became legend. Yet sometimes when she looked at the horizon, her eyes softened with a secret warmth, as if she could still hear him in the rhythm of the tide. The CEO's name, Kai Del Mar, remained listed as missing, presumed dead. But for Isla, he was not gone. He was simply everywhere water moved. Months turned into seasons. Isla returned to the ocean, not as a worker this time, but as its keeper. She began a foundation in Kai's name, the Del Mar Project, to protect endangered marine life and preserve coral reefs. People called her a visionary. Some whispered she was haunted by the sea. They weren't entirely wrong. On quiet evenings, she would stand barefoot on the shore, letting the waves crawl up to her knees, listening. Sometimes the water pulsed with faint turquoise light, just enough to paint her skin. "I know you're there," she'd say softly. "You're still watching." The wind would answer, rustling her hair like fingers through silk. It didn't hurt anymore. Grief had become gratitude. Love had become legacy. The ocean no longer felt like loss. It felt like home. And though she was human again, something within her still moved with the tide. The sea's rhythm lived beneath her pulse. One evening, during a global summit about her project, Isla stood before hundreds of people, scientists, journalists, leaders. She spoke with calm conviction, her voice steady. She said, "We often think the ocean is endless, invincible, but it's alive. It remembers kindness and it mourns our neglect. It breathes with us. Every drop we save, every creature we protect, is a promise that love outlives loss." The audience was silent, moved not just by her words, but by something deeper, an aura they couldn't explain. When she stepped down from the stage, she caught a glimpse of someone in the crowd. A tall man, dark hair, dressed in a navy suit. For a heartbeat, their eyes met, and she froze. His eyes were silver blue. He smiled faintly, the same way Kaiwen's did. And then before she could blink, he was gone, like a reflection fading off the surface of the sea. That night, she returned to the shore alone. The moon hung low, painting the water in silver. She walked until the waves brushed her knees, then stopped. "I saw you," she whispered. The tide surged, curling gently around her hands. "You kept your word." Her heart swelled, not with sorrow, but peace. "I'll keep mine too," she said softly. "Every wave, every life, every sunrise, you'll be there." A warm glow rippled through the sea, surrounding her. For a fleeting moment, she felt his hand in hers again, strong, steady, and full of love. The breeze carried his voice, almost laughter. "The ocean remembers, Isla, and so do I." She smiled through her tears, stepping back to the shore as dawn began to break once more. Behind her, the tide whispered like a heartbeat returning home. And for the rest of her days, whenever the ocean shimmered beneath moonlight, people swore they saw two figures walking hand in hand beneath the waves. Thank you for staying till the end. Please do well to like and subscribe to the channel, and also don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comment. It means a lot to me.